Hey, what's up? My name's Rory Green. I am so excited to be with you guys today. My venture of this whole journey I've been on is that I'm passionate about setting men free. And so this COVID lockdown has changed my life. Ultimately, I've sat around knowing that there's going to be a lot of men sadly struggling going forward in these hard times. However, I've flipped that on its head and I wanted to come to you guys and bring raw, real content of chatting with men once a week, where we can talk about real things that a lot of men struggle simply to talk about. So I came up with a name, In the Light and the Shadows. Why I did that is because men suffer in silence, they suppress their feelings and they hide in the shadows. They put on masks, they try to protect themselves so they don't look weak ultimately. But we need to flip that on this head. There's nothing wrong with a man being vulnerable, and moving forward in this generation, we want to see men that are resilient, that take ownership over their feelings and their sufferings and problems that this world has to face and offer them. But ultimately, we are here today for our first episode, and I am so excited. I've got my first guest. Yes, he is a close friend of mine and a brother, but his story is going to impact your life. His story is going to hook you in. I want to tell you, this man has survived cancer. This man is a successful businessman to date. And without further ado, I want to introduce, his name's Simon Taylor. He's running a rent-to-rent property empowering network called 10, the Empowering Network. And I want to say, Simon, thank you for coming here today, mate. I'm buzzing to talk to you. I'm buzzing to spend potentially the next hour and just chat real so that blokes out there can just watch this and they can relate.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, Rory. As Rory's introduced me, my name's Simon Taylor. I run a company with my business partner, Kevin Wheeler, and we run a property training company called the Empowering Network. And we're also property investors. And it's, you know, property aside, it's a pleasure to be here this morning. And if my story can help some people out there, men, women, anybody that are struggling at the moment with, you know, their mental health, etc., then you know what, I'll share everything and ways that I've overcome a lot of obstacles in my life, including cancer and various other things. Yeah, I'm an open book, Rory.
That's good, man. So let's just go back in time and where young Simon Taylor was. Let's just, you know, because this is about men, this is about young adults and potentially even teenagers clicking and connected to this. So I want to go back in time. Not quite 1984, but I want to go back Doc Brown style and say, right, Simon Taylor, you were 17, 18 years old. You're looking to expand. I believe you're at college, and you're looking to get in that world and just make some penny and hustle and bustle. So just talk about that to us and what your life started out like.
Okay, so from the age of 18, you say? Okay, so it was also 1986, not 1984. You were adding 2 years onto it. So when I left school, I entered into a modern apprenticeship, studying refrigeration and air conditioning. So I was an engineer. I was a mobile engineer. My dad input into my life, and he basically says, because at 16, I was absolutely clueless. I didn't know where I wanted to go. My mum says, if you lay in bed, I'm going to kick you out with your black bags, which was fantastic. Thank you, Mum. That was a good driver for me. I didn't want to be homeless. So I knew I had to make a decision. And my dad was a lecturer at the college, teaching refrigeration. And I remember him saying to me, son, the best thing you can do in life is get a trade, train up, get a company car, company van, and then retire when you're 65. And that's a good life. That was his experience of what it means to make it in life. So I said, okay, Dad, I don't really know what to do. I'm going to go into refrigeration and air conditioning engineering, and I'll give it a go. And that, from the age of 16 to 20, it was 4 years at college. It was like a modern apprenticeship. So it was 4 days at work, 1 day at college. I did 4 years of that and qualified. Yeah, I was never happy though. I was never happy. I always kind of knew, even at that age, that I was born for more. And it took a few life lessons to get me kind of on the wavelength that I am now. But yeah, 4 years at college.
Yeah.
And that's where it all started for me.
Got you. So you talked about, you got to a certain point, and I believe most blokes and most human beings have this. I call it the void or the vacuum. And I personally went through this myself. So you get to a certain point in life, and you know what? There's different checkpoints in people's lives. So it doesn't make it any better of a person if they're earlier in life than not. But you talked about this age. You got to the point and you were like, I felt like I was made for something more. It's a type of emptiness, I call it.
Yeah.
So can you talk us through, like, when you got to that emptiness or that realization in your mind? Because let's be honest, a lot of people block it out, or some people get resilient and they make a plan, or they grab the bull by the horn. So like, what did you do that can, empower people watching today about how you made that change rather than just stay in the rut or dig yourself in a hole, so to speak?
Okay, so from the age of 16, wet behind the ears, to the age of 20, I wouldn't say I had the revelation there. So I'd finished my college course, I've got a company vehicle. The age of 21, I'm on 50 grand a year, I've got a company car, I've got everything that I could want as a single young man. Started going out, spending the money on clothes, sports cars, going out into the clubs. Yeah. And you think that again, I'm surrounded by my father. At the time, is my role model. I'm surrounded by friends who are showing me at that age that that's what you do. You go out there, you get drunk, you buy clothes, you buy sports cars, you do all of them things. And I'm to the age of 23 now. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not claiming to be some guru or expert on life, but I get to 23 and I'm thinking, flipping heck, I live in a nice house. I've got a nice car on my drive. I'm on big wages for my age. I've kind of accomplished everything. I've had that many girlfriends I don't know what to do with. I've broken up with that many girlfriends I don't know what to do with. I'm heartbroken. I'm all sexed out. I've done everything that a young lad is supposed to do, but I still feel. And at the time, I'd grown up in a family. So it all contributes to this point around the age of 23, 24 for me. So let's rewind a little bit to the age of, so between 0 to probably 12, it was a lovely, lovely upbringing with an amazing, strong family. But my dad suffered with depression. So he basically, he combated depression the first time, had his own business, life was going really well for him. And he combated depression the first time, got his business back up and running. And then many, many years later, I think I was about 15, he hit depression again. But what this led to was, he ran in the family. So a lot of his brothers and siblings and stuff like that, they suffered with mental health issues like depression and stuff like that. And I'd watched this as a kid, watching my dad go through this journey. It's really deep, but I ain't got time to go into it. But fundamentally, he then turned to alcohol, turned to the booze, as a lot of men do. That was his coping mechanism. And along, I'm the oldest of 4. So there's me, there's my sister, a brother, and then another sister. So throughout this whole journey of my teenage years, I'm watching a man that I used to look up to as my role model, and still was until I hit the age of 20, because I kind of try to hang on to that. And I watched him kind of go downhill. I watched the marriage break up. I watched him be not very nice to my mum, violence in the house and stuff like that. When I'd go off on one with the booze, when he was drunk, I'd round up the kids and take them upstairs, and I had to deal with that from a young age. So I've watched a man that everybody respected, including me and my mum and everybody, just basically lose everything over that time period. So from the age of 15 to probably the age of 23, I watched my dad decline in that kind of area. And absorbing all that as a young man and trying to process it all to the age of 24 and trying to find life myself, of going out, doing all these things that I've said, earning lots of money and thinking, right, my life, I don't want to end up like my father. I don't want to end up losing everything. So I'm trying my best to obtain physical worldly objects, get a good job. Well, that don't make me feel happy. Go out in town with my friends, have lots of girlfriends, have lots of, sex and stuff like that. And all the things that I think that are going to fulfill me, which brings me back to the answer to your question, Rory. It didn't fulfill me. I still felt after all of that time at a young age, right, I've accomplished everything that I suppose in my mind at the time, and I can be like this sometimes, I'm ticking boxes. I'm thinking, right, I'll try that one. I'll try that one. I'll try that one. It's not working. And I felt along that time that the depression, the genetic depression was starting to get to me. And I felt myself going down the same road and feeling the same emotions as probably my dad did. And I'm thinking, right, I watched my dad sink into this mental health state of depression. You know, he'd been through his fair share of struggles. He watched his dad drop dead in front of him at the age of 8. His mum died of cancer when he was 16 in front of him, and he had to go into child homes and stuff like that. So he'd been through his fair share of struggles. And I watched him, the way he responded to it. And I thought to myself as a young man, right, one of my mentors used to say to me, any fool can learn from his mistakes, but an even wiser man can learn from another man's mistakes. So I'm thinking,
sorry. Say that again. That's good. That's gold.
Any fool can learn from his mistakes, but it takes an even wiser man to learn from another man's mistakes. So I'm thinking, I watched my dad throw away everything. And still to this day, you know, he's not in a good place. And I'm thinking at the age of 23, I feel myself, you know, feeling the effects of the mental health and the depression a little bit, up and down like this, a roller coaster life. And I'm thinking, I can't live like this. And it was affecting my relationship with my family, girlfriends at the time, work, friendships, everything, because my head was a mess, because I'd inherited this genetic curse, as it were, of depression and mental health problems. And I thought, I just can't go down this road. So yeah, that's what brought me to that place. I mean, I can keep talking forever of what happened to me at the age of 23, but I want to let you answer questions.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just good to be real and let it flow. So I'm just hearing you thinking. It sounds to me, and maybe the viewers as well, that you made a definitive choice where you took ownership. Because in Light in the Shadows, it's all about men realizing, being self-aware and acknowledging, which is the hardest part, because a lot of people are in denial. And once you're self-aware, it's then taking action, taking ownership of those circumstances. You called it genetics, the depression. A lot of it was environmental. And what I see in the world is this cycle of brokenness, particularly the fatherlessness state that we're in, the depression, the mental health. It's like a cycle, and it's like a generational cycle. So your dad, and you know, none of what we're saying today is knocking him. The guy's had his hard deal in life, and you know, we respect that he's been on a tough journey. And but the fact is that he had those things. And where was his intervention? Where was people where he could stand up and you know, put his arm around another bloke? And you know, in the pub, I see people just bantering. It's constant masks, and no one's just, you know, being real, saying, look, man, look, I'm having a pity party, I'm struggling, this is what's going on. So, you know, it sounds to me that all these environment and genetic things and family stuff, you made a decision. You drew the line in the sand, saying, look, I'm taking ownership of this. So can you like talk us through, you know, the next kind of transitional phase, I guess, of your life, where you made that decision, you acknowledged it, you took ownership, and then you're like, right, bang. Because we want to encourage people today. It's not just about us going deep and going into the shadows. It's about enlightening them so that we can actually bring people out and expose the truth for them in their minds. So
yeah, definitely, Roy. It's a very, very great point. So I had a choice to make at that point. So I forgot to mention I was into the gym. I was a weight trainer. You know, I ticked all the boxes that a young lad needs to tick. And I remember entering a stage of my life at the age of 23. You know, I was just thinking, you know what, life is tough. Life has been tough. I'd split up from a girlfriend at the time. Family was falling out left, right, and centre. Wasn't that close to me. I had a lot of associates that I used to go out with and stuff, but nobody I could really call a real close friend, you know, at that particular time. And I remember training in the gym, and I remember that there was this guy, and he's talking about flipping church and Jesus and all that. But he wasn't your normal kind of, I give credit to him. It was a bloke called Gary Bruce, really impacted my life around that time. And he was talking about Jesus and stuff like that. But he wasn't a nerd. He wasn't like a church choir boy, as we all label them as. He was a cool dude, and he had muscles, and he was normal, as I would call it. And there was something different about him. He was joyful. He was going through tough times in it, but the way he was dealing with it was different. And I was thinking, well, I'm a problem solver, but I can't solve this problem inside. I can't get my emotions intact. No matter what I buy, no matter what I do, it's just not working. I've got this void that's unhappy inside. But this geezer, you know, he's content with himself. He's dealing with his problems. He's making some good choices. I just got talking to him. I was like, you know what? Just getting to know him, and I warmed to him. There's something within me that resonated with what he was saying, and I now know it was my spirit. But at the time, I'm thinking, well, I don't know. He just makes me feel good talking to him. Anyway, I was going for a real. In silence, on the outside, everybody thought I had it together. Everybody thought everything was good, strong.
That mask was on, bro.
Yeah, the mask was strong. Muscles and chicks and cars and money and, macho. It's all bravado. All bravado it was. And I remember speaking to this guy, and he said, oh, you should come along to church. And I was like, church? Bearing in mind I'd been brought up in an atheist environment. My dad was like, there's no God, there's this, that, the other, there's no such thing. And because he was a role model, I believed him. But something made me resonate with this man and what he was saying. And it wasn't him. It was the thing that was in him, which was God. So I went to his church, and at that particular time, I'd been caught for speeding. So I got caught doing 50 and a 30. I was late for the gym at the time, and I got caught, bad mistakes. And I was going to lose my license, which meant I was going to lose my job, split up with my girlfriend, thought I was going to lose my house, wasn't speaking to my family. Just lots of things were going wrong. I mean, I now know that probably God was trying to drag me in and using circumstance. Many people can interpret that in whatever they want watching this, but my life at that time, I was being gathered, and I didn't know. So I'd reached a point where I no longer had the answers. I've always been a bit of a know-it-all. Still am to a degree sometimes. I always got the answers and always try and problem solve other people's problems and help them, which is why I do the job I do now. Tried to do it with myself. Couldn't. And I remember walking into that church. I won't say I was suicidal, but I say I was contemplating what's the point in this life. I've accomplished everything that you're supposed to accomplish, and yet I feel wretched. I feel angry at my father, at my family situation. I feel depressed. I feel emotional. And I was just reaching out, and I felt low, Rory. I felt low. And I walked into that church, and we all sang, and everybody's got their hands in the air, clapping. And I'm thinking, this ain't for me. This is not the environment I'm comfortable in. But something felt right. And I remember just sitting down while everybody was up there, singing to Jesus of what it was at the time. And I was thinking, all right, God, fair play. If you're real, you've got to show yourself to me. If you are real, if all this is genuine and not just one big delusion, show yourself to me. And I remember walking out of that, something lifted at that point. Now, I'm skeptical. I need to see proof. I'm old school. I want to see tangible proof. Otherwise, I ain't wasting my time on a Sunday every day. I'm not wasting my time with a thing called God, because I just think it's a waste of time. Something lifted that day. And I walked out of that place, that church building, a different man. I walked in, not suicidal, but flipping low, mate, really low. And I walked out as if I'd won the lottery, and I'm thinking, hold up, I've tried everything. Everything I've tried. Nothing's worked. I've gone and sat in a chair in a room full of people praising a thing called God and Jesus, and all of a sudden I feel good. I feel peaceful. I feel joyous. I feel excited, even though there's nothing to be excited about. And the coming months after that, the coming weeks to months, everything started to pan out. Wow. Didn't get banned from driving. Work was fine. Started to make friends with family again, and we started to reconcile. All of a sudden, life started to come together. People at the church, Gary included, started to coach me, mentor me, listen to me, was interested in me. The things that the people I were meeting at church, they were reaching out and was interested in my struggles and listened to me. And I felt important and liberated. Life just started to get better after that. So that was a bit of a key point for me moving forward.
Absolutely. And, people are going to be watching this and going, well, Yeah, nice one, Simon. And yeah, Rory, you all go out that God squad, and yeah, we are. But ultimately, we break down the barriers. This is not like a Christian church four-wall building only club. Like this, these episodes are simply to every man that's struggling in their mind. And you know, this is just part of your story, and we're not ashamed of our stories and our faith. But you know, you talked about going to the top and earning all that stuff, and we're seeing even blokes at the top with mental health issues and suicides. You know, you've got Kurt Cobain, you've got Robin Williams, you know, you got all these other fellas who, you know, even Chester Bennington and Linkin Park, top guy. And people thought he was fine. Like you said, he wore his mask well. Gary Speed, you know, I'm a Leeds fan, one of my heroes when I was a lad. And the point I'm making is, it doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter how successful you are. You can get all the way to the top, and it can be lonely up there. And you know, you feel like I've achieved all this, I've got all this, as you said, mate. And is that void, as we've been referring to earlier, and you know, break through. So you know, it's great that you found God and that. But the point I guess we're getting from this conversation is, you know, you've got to make a choice. The only thing is promised is today. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And you know, you made that choice that day to go into that church, and it wasn't easy. Like, you know, it's not about me, but I had the same thing. I was well freaked out with God, Christianity, the Bible, church people. But you said something powerful. You said people reached out to me, and this is exactly what we need to start doing as blokes. You know, I'm just like one little grain of sand on the beach. This show is that, but we've got to reach out. We've got to extend. You know, it's not about, oh, I can save the world and I can reach out everyone, but it's about one person at a time, one mate at a time. We've got to reach out, as you say. So it's great that church got that model, but it's got to get out there. And so this is what it's all about, man. So thank you so much, Sharon, about all that stuff and just getting deep, because this is what this show is about, being raw and real. You know, it's not edited. This is how it is. So yeah, I want to hear about, basically, you're in church and you talked about, you know, all the women, you know, the sex, you know, again, we have to talk about these things. You know, men are driven by these things. It's not about toxic masculinity. Like, this is the way we're wired. So you got into church, and you know, eventually within a few years you met me, and you know, you then met your wife now, who you've been together now for like 7 or 8 years, I think it is.
8.5 years now, yeah.
Yeah, man. So you know, just take us through that, what that looked like, about transitioning. Because I tell you this, there are men doing what we've done, you know, and a lot less, and some more, and they're going after the girls. You know, they're on the pull, they're thrashing out their 20s, so to speak. We want to give some advice to some young men, the next generation, about taking responsible choices with women and with themselves. Because what we're seeing is, men are planting their seed, right? Let's just be blunt. They're going out, and you see all of these single mums, because men haven't got that responsibility. So, you know, can you just, faith related, but also just practically, can you take us through like your journey with coming into that and being a, you know, a faithful husband?
Yeah. So the more, I'm a big believer. The world calls it karma. I call it reaping and sowing. If you sow destruction, you reap destruction. If you sow wickedness and selfishness and pride, you're going to reap that, you know, the repercussions of it. And if you sow blessing, you're going to reap the benefits of it. And when, you know, one thing that going from you know, not in the church to in the church was, I started seeing the way people were treating people and how accepting people were, and the friendships and the relationships. And I started to pick this up. It was a complete and utter culture change. So whereas the Bible talks about it, he who takes the most highest seat of, you know, I'm entitlement. That's what this world's consumed by at the moment. Entitled. They jump in their pride. I want to be the first. I want to be the best. I want to sit at the top. And the Bible says, he who takes the most, you know, takes it upon himself to get the biggest seat and the highest seat and all this, you know, will be humbled by the good Lord. And he who takes the most humble seat, i.e., you know, after you, sir, that kind of attitude and ethos, will be exalted. And I started to see this in the church. People were selfless. People were after you and more bothered about me and giving and all that. And it was like a topsy-turvy. It was the complete opposite to what I'd experienced in the world. Nobody were trying to cheat me. Nobody were trying to get one over. Everybody was bothered. And it was just a complete and utter culture change. And rather than, and the way men in the church seen women and treated women was completely different until I had to have sex until marriage. Straight away, I'm thinking, you what? You're having a laugh. There's sex before marriage. I mean, I used to be where I needed to test the sex before I got with a person because the whole relationship was then based on how good that woman was in bed, being real with you. Whereas now, it's different. It's getting to know the woman, falling in love with the woman, and then once you're married, experiencing the sex. And I'm thinking, well, if the sex ain't very good, I'm trapped. I'm trapped. And that was the mentality I've been brought up with and surrounded myself with. Anyway, furthering on, met my good wife, Sarah Taylor, the best thing apart from Jesus that's ever happened to me. Wow. That woman has seen me through thick and thin, and we'll move on to that later on in the questioning with the cancer journey. Met this woman. She listened to me. She got me. Obviously there's a pattern here. If you listen and you get me and you understand me, I'm happy. Met this woman, and you know what? We did everything to the book. Everything to the book. Was it easy? Flipping wasn't. But on our wedding night, it was a powerful time, and I got to become best friends with my wife. Got to really know her. Met her through the church. She's a Christian as well. I got to fall in love with that woman, and then she became my soulmate. And then we got married, and then, to be honest, the sex was a bit of an afterthought. It was just a bonus and an icing on the cake. But our marriage now is so strong and was able to be strong through some difficult times we're about to talk about, because we'd built the foundation strong. We were spiritually connected. We were just soulmates and best friends. And the sex was just whatever. It doesn't matter.
It sounds like, you went deep, like in terms of the connection between you both. Like, sex is an amazing thing. Like, don't get me wrong, like we're not promoting that on this program, but sex is unreal, and that's why we talk about it, because we like it in the moment. It's the buzz, it's class. But if that's all it is, you're gonna feel empty. It's just like a cycle, as we talked about earlier, cycles. And unless you go deep with that woman, unless you're willing to commit, unless you're willing to sacrifice and humble yourselves, as you allude to, humility is massive in marriage. And so, this is so important for all the fellas listening today, that we got to go deeper than just like the looks and the sex and the filters and the social media. And
it all fades. All the glitz and the glam and the sex, it all fades.
Call it out.
It all fades. What matters is when you're both 80 and you're sitting in the rocking chair and you're soulmates and you're happy, or when health issues act. And we'll talk about that in a second. But when I'm in a mess, the last thing on my mind is sex, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. It's, the world's driven by it, but it ain't important. It's a cherry on the top, and it's an amazing thing to do within marriage. But you mentioned earlier on the old concept of commitment. Most people don't want to commit anymore. They want all the cherries on the top without the commitment, and it's leaving families broken. That's why it's important. Foundation's right.
It's so true.
The opposite to what I was doing before. The foundation was the sex, and all the other bits, the commitment and then being nice and the selfless and all that was the bits that I had to do on the top. But Christianity and the way the Bible teaches me how to treat my wife, is the foundation is the love and the soulmate and the friendship and the understanding how to respect a woman and my wife. Going from the polar opposite of what I seen my dad doing to my mum. My mum often says the way you treat Sarah, she's like a queen. And it's because I've seen how most men, including my own father, treated women, and still does to this day. And I thought, no, you
broke free, brother. And this is what it's about. It's about freedom. And, we want to let all the viewers today, listen to this now. We're not saying, and putting you in a corner and say, right, you've got to be a Christian. Christianity is the way. Well, yeah, to us it is, but you can only control today what you decide to do with this video, what you decide to take out of it and decide is for today, moving forward, and make your changes today, fellas. Like, you know, this lockdown, it's crippling everyone, you know, but there's some gems in here that Simon's just pure, like, digging out of the ground right now. So take action, listen to these virtues, so to speak, that he's having. So, but this is the meat. We've gone through the bread, but this is the meat that we're going to go into now. So, you know, I remember September. I remember the call, bro.
Yeah.
It was right in September, and I'll never forget this phone call you gave me. You know, the C word came in. I'm not talking about see you next Tuesday. I'm talking about cancer, man. I'll never forget that phone call you gave me back in September that year. It's about, 7 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So talk us through what I'm on about. So I'm not being too cryptic.
No, it's
Lightness.
yeah. So I'm enjoying marriage. 3 years into marriage, we'd bought a house. You know, we've got the nice white picket fence. We're decorating it nice. We've got the nice car on the drive. You know, we're doing all the things, and bang, you know, a healthy, strong man like me that's got his life planned out, and bang, got a lump on my neck appear. Started feeling unwell. Next thing, I'm going to the doctors to get it checked out. Next thing, they're sending me for scans. It all happened really fast. And next thing, it's I've got cancer, 2 different types of cancer. I've been diagnosed in September, like you say, of leukemia and lymphoma. The doctor's looking down on me on the bed saying, look, you know, you've got a massive mass on your chest that's sitting on your heart, which is in one of my lymph nodes. You've got cancer. I'm thinking, no way. I'm like the healthiest person that I know, you know. I'm the only one out of most people I know that doesn't drink or smoke. And what? Me? That acceptance, mate. That acceptance of being hit by that. I mean, at the time, and even all the way through, you don't know whether you're going to live. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with being told that you got cancer, you got a full-time job, you got a mortgage to pay, you got a wife to take care of, and you're thinking, no, I'm in my 20s. This can't be happening. Especially 3 years into marriage. This is like, this is just like, no, this can't be happening. So, yeah, man. I mean, that's how it was hit. Just come out of nowhere, Rory. Nowhere, brother.
That's what life's like, isn't it? You're going to have the buckets of crap, let's call it what it is, come your way.
Yeah. So that's when, you know, I really started to, that's when everything changed for me. That's when everything changed. And again, I'm not claiming to be no guru, but I tell you what, I'm an old head on young shoulders. I've been through a lot in my lifetime, and I've learned a lot because I've chosen to learn from my mistakes and not repeat the same old cycles. So I had a choice to make. Did I question, you know, God that I believe in? Why me? No, I didn't, because that's not the way to approach things. So I chose to respond well. Boy, was I poorly all the way through the treatment. 3 years of treatment I had to have, 3 years of chemotherapy to take on this aggressive form of cancer. And here I am, healthy as anything.
That's right.
But going through those times, Rory, I don't know whether you got any questions or you want me to just rabbit on, or what.
You know, there's potentially people going to have that news. You know, there's a lot of science behind cancer, how it comes about. But, you know, my mother had breast cancer, and she's adamant, like, it's from stresses and life experiences or whatever. But, you know, so I've personally been on that journey with my own mum, and it's the most awful thing. And, you know, I wasn't even the direct victim of it. And I tell you, I was out on a football scholarship in North Carolina, the United States. And I'll never forget that call either. But, you know, the confusion, the anger, the pain, all inside, going on in the 4 walls in here. And this is exactly what this show's about. It's talking about the mind. It's mindfulness. It's focusing on the now. Mindfulness isn't about necessarily trying to go too deep in the past where you can't control it, nor getting fixed on the future where, again, you can only create today and what's happening. So I want to ask you, like, what did you do, like, in your mind, like, to overcome this battle? What choices did you make?
You know what, Rory? I don't actually know. You know why? Because something bigger than me took over. Because the way I dealt with it still cannot be explained to this day. Everybody that knows me, including yourself, I
Mm,
dealt with it so positively, so like it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And yet it wasn't. It was full of flipping struggles. But the way my mind just switched is inhumanly possible. So I was nurses would come into to the room while I'm on my cancer bed and start sharing their problems with me. And I'm thinking, like, oh, I'm going through this in life. And it's like, how is this even possible? Because the way I dealt with it, they used to come in and say, are you sure you're ill? Are you sure you're ill? Because you don't seem it, and the way I dealt with it and the way I responded to the sickness and the illness was just, don't get me wrong, I had my really, really low times in terms of feeling ill, but being isolated in a room for like 2 or 3 months.
yeah, and believe me, that, like, people
Responded the
watching,
way I
believe
did.
me, this man was ill. Like, I visited him, and I've seen from the start to the end, like, this guy, like, I'm gonna be blunt, he should have died. Like, and we thank God and thank just his choices that you didn't, you know?
I'll send you some pictures, Rory, afterwards, and you can
Yeah,
put
man. Oh yeah, all day.
me with a bald head and white
Yeah,
as an
people
alien.
need to see this is real. Like, they can see
Yeah.
this conversation, it all like clean and crisp, but that was a dark time. That was the shadows in your life, you know?
Whilst, you know, the way I think I dealt with it was, I kind of just thought, it's not so bad. I don't know. I responded to it in a very strange way. And I talked to my wife a couple of weeks ago about it, and she filled up and was crying. She said, Simon, you do realize how ill you were, don't you? You do realize that it was horrible to see. And I didn't even know if you'd make it. And I'm like,
Mm,
was it? Because something went on in my mindset that refuses to accept the suffering and refuses to accept the bad thing. Yeah, it's probably not helpful to anybody that's listening, because I just dealt with it in such a way where I thought, I cannot get down about it. I'm past that.
mm,
I had a choice to make. Do I respond, why me? Why me, God? I'm doing everything right. I'm living a good life. I'm just married. Why me? No, I had to respond in a, how can I grow from this? How can I use this?
wow.
One thing that really set in my spirit was, when I get out of this, I'm going to change this world. I'm going to
Whoa.
help change people's lives. I'm going to help, by telling this story. There were times and this is where the marriage really, really spoke to me, was when Sarah had to bath me. I was too weak, feeble as a man. I'd
Whoa.
gone from this macho man with my identity was in who I was, and I was strong, and I had all, I was doing well, and then to being a fragile, little, bold, alien looking geezer being bathed
Right.
by his own wife.
Yo.
In the past, I'd had girlfriends that wanted to walk out because I'd lost my job. I got made redundant once, and she wanted to leave because of that. And it was pretty early, the relationship was based on money and identity on that kind of stuff. Whereas Sarah, she seemed to love me more the uglier I looked. She seemed to love me more the more weak I was.
Hey, she ain't no gold diggers, Kanye says. She didn't take your money when you're in need.
Yeah, man. Through thickness, no, sorry, thickness, through sickness and in health,
Mm,
through good times and bad times. And she started to live out, she taught me so much. She started to live out what the vows actually meant and what the
wow.
Bible said. And oh, mate, it was just, yeah, I had to deal with it. And, I had to be strong for my wife as well. I had to really be strong for my wife. And that was one of the massive things for me, staying strong for the people around me. It
Yeah,
was a
man.
difficult time, mate. It was a difficult
And
time.
thank
And
you for going deep. Even like, oh man, I'll say to the viewers today, like, I did not know about the bathing thing, and like Simon and I, you know, we've seen each other, know our ups and downs. So yeah, I want to thank you for that so much, for just being real and vulnerable. And what I like to focus on as well is with masculinity and mental health and us blokes is there's a balance in it. Okay, so I always feel like there's always two extremes in life, and with blokes mental health it's like oh men they can't feel. Oh, let's put them let's have a pity party. Oh, these poor men. And again, look, there's an imbalance, you know, so we're victimizing men unnecessarily, so we can't get in that pity party mode where yes, life is hard, yes, there's struggles, but if we weigh ourselves down so much, we're hitting the ground, we're rock bottom, we can't get back up. And then on the other side I see, you know, people using terms like toxic masculinity and you know, just putting us down. And you know, you've got to find a happy medium where we're being real but we get right back up. So yeah, man, I just want to thank you for just...
No problem, my friend, no problem. I mean, just on that, while we're camping there, it's what all the masculinity and all the bravado and all the you know, like we all like to make out that we are, it don't mean jack when you're in the hospital bed, mate. I remember bursting into tears when friends and family were contributing towards our bills. So I'm lying in a hospital bed worrying, like, God, what are we going to do with our bills? How are we going to pay our mortgage? And then all of a sudden there'd be $2,000 in our bank from one of our friends, or people had put money in our bank and somebody had texted us and say, you know what, don't worry about your mortgage for the next 3 months because we've got you covered. And it's like, wow, all of a sudden you realize you're in a weak state, and it comes down to then who you're surrounding yourself with. And it was a lot of the church family that paid the bills, and my granddad, and people were just around us, the support network. And you realize I'm only strong. Your strength can be defined not just about who you are, but who you surround yourself with. And at that time, we were so thankful to have some strong friends and family around us. And I realized at that point, you know what, I don't need to have all the answers. I don't need to be this strong man all the time. I think that's what helped with my mindset as well, knowing I had support around me. And I was just vulnerable. I was just, you know, vulnerable. Told people how I was feeling. But yeah, I remember you coming to the hospital bed with food and Game Boys and
yeah, man,
all kinds of stuff, mate, for me, because, you know, my support network was strong. And I always remember that. And I used to cry most nights because of people's kindness.
Wow.
To my wife and I. It really, really touched me.
Yeah.
And that changed me.
It's so important that we have
Massively.
people around us, bro. You're right. Something I just want to highlight and enlighten is what you said earlier, about how do you know how basically we feel sorry for ourselves, and you know, we can dug ourselves in a rut. And this is what I talked about, those extremes. You talked about the hospital staff. They were coming to you with their problems. Now, don't get me wrong, we have to have clear boundaries in life where if we're struggling, we need to like communicate that so that people don't offload. But there's something powerful, I think, in if you're struggling sometimes, just give the little bit that you might have, not too much, but just give a little bit, because obviously serving people, giving, helping people, it's gonna boost you. It's gonna give you a buzz. Like I remember, again, it's not about me, but I remember, you know, I was transitioning into working in politics and then into my current job I'm waiting to start. And so, you know, I haven't got an income. There's 2 homeless girls on the street, and I was trying to keep my head down, have music on, and I just had this feeling like, despite I'm not in a good place, they're not in a good place either. And I made a choice. I got on my Mackies, and I'll tell you what, I sat on the floor for that 10 minutes. I was buzzing. And this is what it's about: is we got to just ensure that we don't dig ourselves and rut too deep, that we're just paralyzing ourselves. You know what I mean?
Totally get that, Rory. One of the biggest pieces of advice from one of my mentors, Mr. Roger Robb, was he said it's impossible to feel down about yourself and depressed and discouraged. He taught me the difference between depression and being discouraged. I've just realised I'm sticking 2 fingers up there.
Keep it the right way.
So there's a difference between discouragement and depression. And a lot of the time we think we're depressed, but we're not. We're just discouraged with the current circumstances. And he said, while ever you're contributing to other people, like you did, like I did, it's hard to think about yourself when you're always thinking and you're contributing, you're giving out. So hard. You cannot be in a discouraged or depressed state while ever you're giving. You can't. Because it made, like you said, it made you feel buzzing because you're a human being and that's the way you're designed. You reap what you sow.
That's right, man. That's so good. You know what? Like, I feel like I've been fed, bro. Like, I'm here just having a chat with you, and this is what it's about, just having an organic conversation, man. But I'm just like, yo, I am fed, and the people watching today, I'm telling you, bro, you have given some class statements. You know, so we're gonna like just transition to like coming to an end. But before we close today's conversation, I want to ask you to enlighten us, Simon, with one piece of advice. You know, if you had to say to one bloke today who's watching this and he's contemplating just ending it, right? And you could just give him one piece of advice to enlighten him in a sentence, what would that be?
Go and have a cup of coffee or a phone call, because obviously it's COVID at the moment. Have a cup of coffee in your hand, pick up the phone right now and speak to the one person in your life that makes you feel like the real you, that understands you, that makes you feel good after being in their presence, and open up and be real. Because yeah, it is massive. And I know it's slightly longer than a sentence, but when you surround yourself with amazing people, just one person. I always remember I started my business just by having a cup of coffee with one person because they believed in me, they seen the best in me, and they told me I could take over the world. And it took me from one state of mind to another.
Yeah.
Just that one conversation, just that one reaching out to someone who you presume will not be interested will change your life, and it will take you off the edge. It will. All you need is that one person. It was for me, it was Gary Bruce at that time, just that one person who brought me into church, and it changed my life. I met my wife, and I dealt with cancer in the way that I did because I was, you know, devoted to God, and God's a massive part of my life. Just that one person. All it takes is one phone call, one person with a cup of tea in hand, just to make you feel better. And we've done it with each other, Rory.
Yeah,
many.
Yeah, and you know, that's that you know, taking ownership, taking action today. You gave some great advice because there's a geezer in America. I don't know if you've seen his story, bro, but this guy went on a bus to Golden Gate Bridge in California, and he went on the bus and he was like openly upset. One of the guys who sat on the bus mocked him, said, "Oh, look at that guy over there crying." The bus driver didn't say, come on, kid, get off the bus, hurry up." And he just said to himself, if they just say, "Oh, are you okay?" If they just say something, then I won't go through this. Anyway, he didn't. So he got off the bus, ran as fast as he could, and literally took the jump. He jumped over Golden Gate Bridge. He went to the depths of the water, and he knew in that moment, I should be dead, and he wasn't. In that moment, he broke his pelvis, and he fought for his life to get back up to the water, but he was in the middle of the bay, so he couldn't swim because he broke his pelvis. Anyway, lo and behold, a sea lion circled round him and kept him afloat in the water. And
No way.
he tried to keep kicking it away, and the sea lion kept him up and survived until the Coast Guard come. And he said, "Kid, you know how many people who do this and take their life?" He was like, "No, I don't want to know." And he's like, "No, you need to know. I'm going to tell you. 57 this month." And he said, "Only one survived, and that's you." And so, you know, that was, you know, so fortunate, let's say. But we're saying to blokes today, in this lockdown, in the current circumstances, and in the days to come where it's going to be hard financially, relationally, everything, as Simon said, just take that drink, take a breath, and call that one person that you know makes you feel that you are truly you and you can feel safe around. But yeah, man, thank you for that. So yeah, we just want to say thank you for watching today and this episode. It's a weekly thing. We're coming up next week. So I want you to take action. Take this advice today. Take notes, log it. But ultimately, and the link below, I want you to click and subscribe. There's a red button just below the video. I want you to click and subscribe. And then I want you to just keep following us and go on this journey within light and the shadows. So yeah, Simon, thank you, mate. Wish you all the best. Have an amazing day, and thanks for spending time with us. We love you, mate. All right, brother. See you later, mate.